Hey everybody, it's John with today's active self-protection extra lesson. I've had a lot of people asking me about the intersection of my self-defense training and my profession. So for 15 years now, I have pastored a church. Well, I guess about 14 and a half years in reality. And I've run active self-protection since 2011, so about the last 6 years. And usually, when people find out that I pastor a church, I make no bones about the fact that I'm a Christian, and then faith in Jesus runs my entire worldview in my life. But when I'm a pastor, when people find out I'm a pastor, people say, "Well, John, how do those work together?" So, so I thought I would talk just a little bit here about how I integrate those. And first and foremost, I have a four-part series on my personal blog, not active self-protection. My personal blog is called A Biblical Framework. And so I'm going to link to that in the description so that if you want to read my full philosophy of Christianity and self-defense, you can. Um, and it's old. I wrote it actually, I think in 2009. It really needs an update, but it lays out the foundations. Actually, I'm stronger on it today than I was when I wrote it. But so a couple things. First of all, I talk about spiritual fitness in the videos, and I mean that. And I don't mean that to be, um, confrontational with people, but I give practical self-defense advice to people every day, and spiritual fitness is an important part of that. And in the videos, what I almost always say is, I say that, listen, when the good guy doesn't make it, that spiritual fitness is an important reminder there because you want to make sure you've said everything that you need to say to your loved ones and that you need to make sure that you are at peace with Jesus because you're going to need those on that day. And that's a recent change for me, actually, a little bit. I said for a long time, I just said, make sure you're at peace with God. And so then I changed that word to Jesus. And the reason for that is in my personal prayer life and in my devotional life, the Lord kind of got on me that in all my self defense preparation, I have been really strongly focused on making sure that I give the best accurate information that I can. And the Lord said, "Hey, look, man, you're giving good information here, but not as accurate as you possibly can. You're being vague when precision is required." And so I made that change. It's caused a little bit of stir on the channel, a little bit, because some people, get frustrated at that. But some people also appreciate it. And I think that it's important for me to be accurate where I can. So why do I say that? Well, I didn't grow up in church. I didn't grow up in a believing family at all. But I grew up worshiping Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers more than anything else in the San Francisco Bay Area. I married my wife just after I turned 19, and we've been married for 22 and a half years now. And when I got selected as an officer candidate in the U.S. Navy, we moved to Oregon, and we were trying to make ourselves better. I had to quit smoking and lose some weight and all those things because I was going to be an officer in the Navy. And one of those is my wife said, "Hey, let's go to church." That she had been as a teenager and had become a Christian, but then fallen away from that. And so after some cajoling, I decided to go. And that was in October of 97, Easter of 98. The pastor, kind of really challenged the whole congregation that you could disagree with God all you wanted. You could disagree with Christianity, but what are you going to do with the empty tomb? And, excuse me, sorry, fighting that chest cold. What that set me on a path to is investigating. I'd never read the Gospels before. I'd never really considered the veracity of who Jesus was before. I'd never said what is the evidence for who Jesus is and who he claims to be and who Christians claim him to be, and what are the competing theories. I was a student at the time in engineering, nuclear engineering student at Oregon State University, and an officer candidate in the Navy. And what I found there over about a 6-month window is that probably the most plausible theory of the empty tomb, that we know that Jesus lived and died, that's not in question. We know that that the tomb is empty, that they never recovered his body. So those things aren't in question. But why? Of all the competing theories, the only one that really made a lot of sense, that was even really possible or plausible, was that he was alive, that he rose from the dead. And but that wasn't the end of my particular journey. I wasn't just a rational person who was like, "Oh, okay, well then I'm in." It really took at some point some more exposure to Christianity and some more exposure to the teaching of Jesus to learn that he loved me even with my sin, even where I was weak, even where I wasn't good, that this wasn't just a moral reclamation project, that it wasn't like, be good and I will like you. But right in the middle of my mess, even with all of my ugly, that Jesus loved me and he died for my sins and he rose again, knowing all that in advance. And that's when I surrendered my life. I said, "Okay, Lord, if that's what this is, if this is you loving me so much, that you died for me right where I'm at, then I'm in. Then I'm done fighting you. And I became a Christian July 26th of 1998. And he hadn't left me there, of course. You know, the love of God doesn't, it accepts us right where we are, doesn't leave us right where we are. And so from there, it's been a significant progress. I didn't end up as a commissioned officer, ended up actually resigning my commission after a car wreck. Got rear-ended by a drunk driver. I'm truncating a lot of story. They did a couple surgeries on my back, told me, thanks for your interest in national defense, and don't let the Lord hit you, or I'm sorry, don't let the door hit you where the Lord split you. And when I got out, I decided I wanted to be a pastor. So I moved here to Phoenix, Arizona, went to seminary. It's a 96-hour master's degree, and I did it in 3 years. It was a lot of work. And I love pastoring. I love helping people with the most important times of life, the most important decisions of life, the most difficult things of life. And while I was going to seminary, I ran a video game store. And when the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 came out, people were getting mugged for them. Like, store managers were getting shot and stabbed and stuff. And I'm like, nah, not me. So that's when I went and got my CCW in Arizona. That was in '06. And it wasn't long after that that I kind of finally realized, gosh, man, I don't really know how to use this thing. I better figure out how to use it if I'm going to carry it, because it's not a very good lucky rabbit's foot. It's not a very good magic talisman. And so that's when I really started training empty-handed skills as well as firearm skills in '06, late '06, early '07, when I really started kind of going with it. So how do those two work together? Well, okay, here's the thing. I believe that Jesus is the ultimate peace bringer, and he is the one who solves all conflict, and he is the one who brings ultimate reconciliation. At the same time, I think the scripture is fairly clear throughout that there is nothing that's more valuable than a human being. That I have great value and worth and dignity as a bearer of the image of God, and therefore no one has the right to take that from me. No one has the right to harm me or anyone else. And if somebody does, I have the right to stop that threat. Now, that doesn't make me a punisher. That doesn't make me an avenger. That doesn't make me somebody that goes, "Hey, man, I want to kill somebody. Ooh, I wish someone would." No, I don't wish someone would. Actually, I'm really glad no one has in my personal world. But I have the right to stop a threat because I have great value as a bearer of the image of God. So does my family. I have a right to stop that for them. And my wife deserves to grow old with her husband. My children deserve to grow up with their dad. My children's children deserve to have a grandfather. My church deserves to have its pastor. And so I have the right to stop anybody from harming me, which is why I harp on stopping the threat. That's my goal. I stop the threat and nothing more, because spiritual fitness says, I'm not trying to kill somebody. I'm trying to stop a known deadly threat. If he dies in the process, he has made his bargain with God, in my opinion. But my goal is to stop the threat. That's how those two work together the best for me. First of all, spiritual fitness. If today's the day, well, then I know I go home to Jesus and it's okay. Number two, I know that I am of inestimable value, worth, and dignity, and so are you. And so therefore, I train every day to protect what is valuable, and you are valuable, and I am valuable, and my family is valuable. Number three, I think Jesus is okay with it. I think that Luke 22:36 authorizes that. Nehemiah chapter 4, Exodus 22:2. Go read that on my blog. Okay, so all that stuff is there, and an understanding of Romans chapter 12. If as much as depends on you, be at peace with all people, but some things just don't depend on you. So when they don't depend on you, you gotta be willing to do what you need to do. So that's how those go together. I pray every day that I don't need my tools. I pray every day I don't get in a defensive encounter. I work very hard on my de-escalation, escape, and avoidance. I work very hard on empty-handed skills. I carry a pepper spray with me. All those things so that I don't have to get in deadly force encounters, that I'm able to get out of them rather than get into them. But knowing that if I have to, I do carry a firearm for a reason, that I have the right to stop a deadly threat against me, and that's the right tool to stop a deadly threat against me, and that's the goal, to stop a threat. And of course, I think I pray every day that I can do the stuff that's left of bang, that I don't have to use deadly force to protect myself, and I just pray and ask for God's forgiveness for the person who would make me use them. We do this thing in UMass, the art that I study under Mr. Lawrence Robinson and Mr. Skip Hancock, um, about what we call our salute, which we learn from Ed Parker. So Ed Parker brought Kempo Karate from Hawaii to the States, owned the first commercial martial arts school in the country, a great and transcendental and transformative martial artist. So from Mr. Parker, I don't want to call him Ed, some people get really mad about that, from Mr. Parker to Mr. Hancock to Mr. Robinson to me, and it's in our salute. So one of the things that we do as we bow into our martial arts classes is we salute one another. So we come back this way and we have our fist, which is indicative of our strength, and an open hand, which is indicative of our knowledge, and we present them to one another. So we say, here's my strength and my knowledge, and I present it to you. Then I take your strength and knowledge and I bring it into me as we come to class together. And then we have an old saying, a saying of Ed Parker's, the Kempo Creed that we've adopted and adapted just a little bit. And that comes around and shows, first of all, here are my empty hands. I come to you, I have no weapons. But should I be forced to defend myself, right? So I carry tools, so I don't use that particular part real well, but it says, here are my hands, here is my knowledge, everything that I have available. But should I be forced to defend myself? We move here. Here are my strength and knowledge. Should I be forced to protect myself from deadly threat or non-deadly threat? Here are the strength and the knowledge that I have, and I will use them in my defense. And then we pray and we say, Lord, please forgive the one who forces me to use them. Not me for using them, but him for forcing me to use them. So that's kind of how I think spiritual fitness plays into my everyday. That's how my particular faith plays into my understanding of self-defense and how I put the two of them together. A life of peace, a life dedicated to helping others, a life of trying the best that I can every day to stay out of deadly force encounters, and a readiness to use it if I possibly can. Hope it helps you. And if I can help you in any way, send me a message. Glad to help.